Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, and thank you for being here for another episode of Beyond the Lines. It's the show where we get an opposition supporter's view when it comes to previewing Newcastle's next game. And this Friday at 8 o'clock, we're finally home, people. After 4 away games, we start 3 games on the bounce with Wolves on Friday at home, under the lights, Friday night. There'll be a lot of ales drank, and to help me preview this one, I'm joined by a podcaster, a Wolves lover. He is a fan of the Wolves and Wolverhampton in general. It is Richard, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for the introduction. I mean,
Right.
I want to say Friday game under Friday Night Lights. Everyone loves. Like Newcastle, great ground. All the rest of it, apart from the stairs.
Yeah,
Friday night. It is a big trek for a Friday night game. Is the only sticking point. You need to make a weekend of it, which is the only benefit I know some fans are doing.
Well, I think you've got that benefit, haven't you? You could start a weekend there, whereas we've been given Sunday trips and midweek trips to the capital from Newcastle, so you'll get no sympathy from us. Wolves fans.
You say when you look at it, you can very clearly see whoever organised the fixtures, because it was supposed to be a Saturday 3 o'clock job, wasn't it? Until about a month ago, and you very obviously this game hasn't been arranged for Friday night for someone who goes to watch football, has it?
No. I mean, to be honest, Friday night games are only good for me if we win or get a positive result, because you can enjoy the rest of the weekend. Watch the rest of the football unfold, but
and have a nice weekend.
Yeah, but if it goes badly, then it gets the weekend onto a wrong foot. The only good thing is you can get tanked up well before the match.
I was going to say our game before the Villa game, we had Leeds on Friday night before the international break, and it all kind of went downhill second half and whatever. Oh, yes. But it then meant we had Saturday and Sunday were a write-off because everyone lost love of football. And then we had the international break. So it was a good job we beat Villa, because I don't know what state we'd have been.
Yeah. It was I mean, I watched that in the pub, and God, that almost, no, it didn't. I was about to say it put out the wheels falling off in our second half against Spurs to shame. It really didn't. Didn't.
But at least we could empathise with each other, can't we?
Yes, sir. Maybe not in terms of where we are on the table, but in terms of our last results, maybe. Yeah. Not last results, obviously, you beat Villa. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about Newcastle versus Wolves. We're going to talk about Wolves in general first, Richard. That's why we've got you on the podcast. Wolves' season so far, recent form, 3 wins out of 5. Sitting 8th, quite pretty in the league, 3 points off 6th, although Man United is sandwiched between you and West Ham with a game in hand. What are your thoughts on this season so far?
I feel like we've kind of gone a bit under the radar this season in terms of how well we've done to a degree. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's starting to look like last season was just a bit of a blip where, we had 2 7th place finishes. We dipped last season for a few different reasons, but this is a team we didn't have lots of investment in the summer when Bruno's come in. We haven't put in lots of game changes. There's been a couple of tidy additions, but he's improved a lot of these players, and we've quietly got results when we've needed to, and we've beaten teams, particularly in the bottom half of the table, quite often, which used to be Wolves' kind of downfall, that we'd always lose to like Huddersfield, and it would infuriate us. But we'd get that win against Man City or Spurs or whatever, and you go, oh, you'd rather. But those are the games where you need to win. This season, it feels like we've kind of gone a bit more pragmatic in terms of who we've been playing. So, the football's been good. It kind of goes in peaks and troughs. That either we play really well and we don't score, or we grind it out. Mm-hmm. We don't send. We've kind of had about 4 games, I'd say, tops, where we've looked threatening, we've scored goals, and it's been good, really fun to watch, which has been different. So overall, I can't have any complaints as a Wolves fan, to be honest. We are, a couple of results to push in top 6.
Yeah, that's a great position to be in. I mean, you're right in terms of, I sort of agree with what you said about going under the radar a little bit. I mean, Wolves, even in their better seasons, previous under Nuno, as much as they were doing really well, you sort of forget about them for a sec, and then you check the Premier League table, and you're like, oh, they're actually they're still doing well.
Yeah.
And it was the same. It was the same with this season. I mean, just looking up for this podcast in general. I know you're coming off the back of a big win against Villa, but you lost a game, and then you'll win 2, and you'll lose 1, and then you'll, like you say, you maybe get like a string of results where you'll play 3 beatable teams and get 7 or 9 points, and it's because of that. It's got you in good stead. You're the best of the rest, it would seem. I mean, West Ham are up there as well, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very much a good position to be in. You've just mentioned no additions. Not say no additions. You brought in Hwang and the likes of that, but we look at the manager really, because Nuno left to go to Spurs. Obviously, that didn't work out, and you've brought in Bruno Lage. I mean, was it the right time wanting Nuno leaving? Have you got? Was it a good transition period because things weren't going so well with him? But then Bruno's came in, and like you said, not with great, reinforcement, and he's done very well. So have you seen a massive difference between him and the previous manager?
Yeah, it feels like I think the time was right for Nuno to go, and you could have probably argued that he could have gone at the end of the season before and things like that. But you had a manager who, ploughed us through the Championship, got 2 7th-place finishes. You can't really get rid. He had enough capital, enough
100%
stock in the bank to see out last season. We were never going to get relegated. It was just a bit dire, which I think I do lots of sort of opposition fan podcasts, and we always say, I think a lot of fans outside the top 6 can empathise that theme that, you know what, we're going to finish 14th.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to kind of push forward sometimes, but Bruno's come in, and I think it's been a really good sign of how good a coach he is, that we're not playing in a formation and necessarily a style he wants to play in. We're playing this because of the players he's got. He came in saying, I want to play with a back 4, but we don't have the players. We don't have the personnel who'll be able to do it effectively. So I'm sticking with the formation almost from the old regime under Nuno, and sticking with a back 3 for now, because we don't either have the defenders or we don't have the midfielders. But one thing that the owners have done since they've joined, they've wanted to hire coaches who are coaches and want to improve players, and it's not just about investing in the squad. Don't get me wrong, healthy investment in likes of Neves and Jimenez, but they're also coaches who improve players. And Connor Cody stepped up again this season when I didn't know if that was possible. I thought he'd hit his ceiling as a player. Max Kilman has gone from being a fairly average player to pushing for an England call-up. And even someone like Ruben Neves, who was, a quality player in the Championship, good Premier League the last couple of years, it's just elevated his game back a bit more under the manager.
He's been very good,
and
very good.
You go back, and that's testament to the manager and, working sort of with what he's got. But saying that, we changed goalkeepers. Patricio leaves. We bring in Sarr for less money, and he's arguably a better goalkeeper. So all round, things kind of going well at the club at the moment under the manager.
Yeah, I mean, outside looking in, certainly seen. I know you improved, like you've just said, that Santos had. Nuno had the sort of stock to allow for one, subpar season. But I mean, football fans have short memories. You came from the Championship, you had 2 seasons finishing 7th, and all of a sudden things go maybe not as great, and people are asking why. But like you say, you had stock to sort of see that season out, and I appreciate that. But you need to build on these things, and it looks like you have. I mean, in terms of the squad, it's still quite a familiar squad to the one that came up a little bit. You're talking about players like Ruben Neves, Jimenez. I mean, these are probably players that are doubts for the weekend. Is that not true? Doubts Jimenez?
Yeah, Jimenez is suspended for a second game, and Neves is out with a knee injury, which is tough because he's been one of our most influential players.
Did he play at the weekend, Neves?
No, he got injured against Leeds, so he's had a couple of weeks out now. So I think he's potentially due back end of the month. So it's most likely going to be a midfield of Martinho and Dendoncker, which worked well against Leeds. But you're right. It's a familiar layout. Over there's not been huge amounts of changes. So it's consistent. Like let's say Roman Sace has sort of stayed around and still kind of clung on to a first team spot somehow. So yeah, it feels like there's always like little additions rather than it being big sweeping changes. The last sort of 2 years.
So who would you say are your difference makers in the squad now, Richard?
In terms of ones who can kind of convert draws into wins, it's the likes of Daniel Podence, who is almost the classic like number 10 in terms of what he can do for Wolves and turn a game on its head. João Martino, at the age of I think 35, still can run a midfield and showed it against Aston Villa, the way he could still open up a pitch if he needed to and play a couple of different roles. We're not quite consistent in terms of some of our forward players who we can like rely on to get a goal. Our goals are spread out throughout the team, but you know, if Daniel Podence plays, it feels like we've got a chance of creating something at any opportunity.
So sorry, mate. So who where does he play Podence in that system?
Yeah, so he primarily sort of plays on the left, cutting in.
Right. Okay.
So depending on like who's up front, sometimes he almost plays as a second striker. Other times he's on the left.
Right. Okay. So who will be? I mean, Jimenez's slot's open. Is that young Fabio's job?
Yeah, So Silva started against and did well despite not scoring against Villa. So I can see him starting again. Starting again Friday night with probably Podence. Let's say not quite alongside him, but nearby. And then either he'll go with Hwang, who scored a couple in the previous fixture, or he'll keep with Trincao, sort of a different option as a bit more of a more of a winger.
Right. Well, you've just mentioned, funny enough, the previous game, 2-1 at Molineux. That was a game that, funnily enough, ended a 5-match streak of 1-1s between our sides. I was just looking at the previous fixtures, and I mean, the sort of all seemed to merge into one, especially with the fact that Jamal Lascelles scored at home in 2 previous fixtures for us. So it was
I was having a look at the fixtures beforehand and like the head-to-heads, and I think like it's something like in 13 Premier League games, there's only been like about 4 wins each between us, and then the rest have been draws. And like, I had to like look back that there's been some like really even games over the past couple of years. Yeah, both teams in the last 7, both teams have scored. So would you see that following suit on Friday? I'm not saying the 1-1 necessarily, but do you think it being an open game? Do you see us causing you problems? Do you see you causing Newcastle problems? Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm always sort of optimistic that Wolves can get a goal at the moment. We're not a high scoring team, but we're good at getting a goal. If you catch my drift. Interesting to sort of see how Newcastle approach it, because they've been doing all right up until the last 3 games. Until the last 3 games, and sometimes there's no discredit losing to a top
Chelsea and Tottenham,
and you go, well, you take them out. But Newcastle have definitely got some dangerous players and players who can kind of cause an issue. I'm interested to see if I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, but if Bruno starts.
Guimarães. Come on, Richard. The amount of Portuguese players on your side, and you don't know how to pronounce Guimarães. He's Brazilian, by the way. I know he's Brazilian, but I'm just saying it's very similar pronunciation.
Yeah, but I always get them wrong as well. Like even Neves. Neves is supposed to be pronounced Neves, and I still can't get my head around
Bruno Lage.
Bruno Lage, yeah. And even players like Chris Wood up top is someone who consistently scores against Wolves.
Yeah,
it's frustrating the amount of goals he's got against us. Whether he's at the sort of a top quality level or not, but Newcastle have shown a bit about themselves since the turn of the year, and don't get me wrong, the addition of a few players has helped, and the new manager as well. But I don't think it's going to just be like a complete walk in the park.
And I hope not.
And the fact that like Newcastle have kind of got themselves out of any real relegation danger, I think, at this point, unless
I hope you are, I'm a superstitious guy. I hope you are not jinxing us there, Richard.
No, well, I was going to say, we've got Everton and Burnley later, haven't we?
Exactly.
And I think they've done enough to kind of give themselves that bit of breathing space. But say you don't want to slip back and finish 17th. You want to finish as strong as possible under this regime because there's Newcastle going to sign more players in the summer, aren't they? So a lot of those players will want to make sure they're staying around. So I'm interested to kind of see how Newcastle approach it, particularly after a heavier defeat. So I think it's probably still going to be kind of a low scoring game.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest, but I think it's going to be an interesting watch. To be fair,
I mean, you've hinted on it there, and Newcastle fans won't thank me for going into the form of the last 3 games, but it's been a strange one for me because we were absolutely flying, and I mean, I'm a very negative, pessimistic Newcastle supporter. A lot of people will tell you that, but when we beat Southampton away from home, from coming back from 1-0 down, and Guimaraes scores and Wood scores, and I just said, we're flying. We're officially flying now. And then we go into the Chelsea game and we're robbed. We were absolutely robbed. We should have had a penalty. We should have had probably a red card for Chelsea as well. And the person who should have been sent off goes and scores in the 88th minute. We didn't. We then approached the Everton game a bit negatively. We still played good in the first half, but again, that's dropped down because we played bad in the second to get beat again. And then Spurs comes and we've sort of not hit rock bottom, but it sort of went on this downward trend. And it's for these next 3 games, you need to realise that this game against Wolves is huge for Newcastle because it starts a run of Wolves, Palace and Leicester, 3 very good teams sitting 8th, 9th and 10th. But we will still be seeing it as opportunities to get points on the board. Yeah. And within the situation we're in, like you've just said, we've got breathing space. That's very important. There's a 9-point gap then. All that matters is we're better than 3 teams at the bottom, just to go into next season with a bit of confidence and just start again. But the fact is we need about 4 or 5 more points. And then after this, we've got Norwich. And these next 4 games are just huge for Newcastle. I mean, I'd take probably a win and 2 draws, and I think that would see us safe. But we'll have to wait and see. And I think we'll approach the game maybe a bit differently to what we have the last couple because we're at home and we got that place rocking since the new players came in. The new players have done fantastic. I won't walk over well-trodden ground on this podcast because we've spoke a lot about those players. But, there'll be some decent battles. Dan Burn at the back up against Fabio. I mean, Fabio's not much of a guy to win stuff in the air, is he? He's more of a get it on the deck type of player.
Yeah, he likes ball to feet. He's still young, and it's kind of interesting to sort of see how he does against different defenders, to be honest, because sometimes
different types of defenders.
Because he gave Tyrone Rings a run around on Saturday, but sometimes you never quite know whether that's against the personnel or just if he's playing the occasion. Because he looked up for on the Derby game. He definitely had a red ball beforehand, and it's going to be a different test for him. And he's up against 2 centre halves, so it's going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be Shaw and Burn at the back, or even if Lachelle comes in, they're canny Premier League operators, and it's going to be a question if we're up for it. The midfield battle is going to be an interesting one as well with John Joe Shelvey in there. There's a couple of really interesting ones across the pitch.
Missing a certain Mr. Joe Linton there, Richard.
Well, yeah, because the striker the striker cut midfielder. It's going to be interesting, I think, because we've got Dendonka, who is a defender / midfielder, and almost like the opposite side of Joel Linton, the fact that sometimes when he plays in defence, he plays like a midfielder playing at the back, and when he's in midfield, he plays like a defender playing in midfield. And so I think having him matched up, almost an offensive counterpart in terms of someone who's a striker, but not kind of find his feet, who's flourishing as a centre midfielder, which I don't think any of us saw come in 6 months ago.
Definitely not.
So I think, and I think one thing that both kind of teams pride themselves on is having those wingers and a couple of exciting players who can open a game up as well.
We'll see what happens. Do you miss? I mean, we've got Alan St. Maximin, who hasn't granted been great. He's been injured, came off the bench to make some very forgettable cameos, and started against Spurs. But then again, pretty much the full 11 didn't cover themselves in glory on Sunday. Yeah. But we've got we could maybe bring him off the bench, or if he starts. Do you miss that dynamism that Adama Traore brought?
That's an interesting question because I think that both of them kind of have a lot of similarities in
Just
their
the fact that they
game.
could, you see them do some things one day and you think, wow, I've never seen that happen before. And then it could end up in a terrible cross or shot. It could end up in an absolutely amazing goal. You just don't know. And then some days they just don't look interested. I mean, as much as they're very both powerful dribblers, they both have the different assets because obviously Traore was just pure power. But people would always call for him to come off the bench. Like every secondary commentator would go, maybe it's time for Adama Traore. Maybe it's time to start Adama Traore. So do you sort of miss that like sort of wild card having there was an option off the bench?
A little bit, because I think almost like the idea of Adama Traore is worse than Adama Traore himself. Do you know what I mean? Like that Dan Burn, like we got a booking every time we played him.
Yeah.
Because it would come to a 55th minute and he'd whiz past him, he'd chop him down on the halfway line.
Yeah.
And, you'd have teams, again, same with ASM, they rotate fouls and they don't necessarily get enough players booked because of it. And Adama seemed to he'd lose confidence when that happened rather than gain it because they're fouling you for a reason. It's because you're better than them.
So get them to do it again, aye.
Yeah, just keep doing it. And at the end of the day with Adama, the dribbling's great. And, you could look at his expected assists and, everything like that. But at the end of the day, the output from somebody in his position isn't and wasn't high enough. And the system was being created for him to get chances. Now, that's not necessarily how it should be, but if the ball's falling to him in prominent places, he needs to be finishing it and he needs to be burying it. And, the fact that, his contract's up at the end of next season as well, the club needed to make a decision. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure they've made the right one in this loan move at the moment, which is a whole other saga. But in terms of him being that wild card off the bench, yes, to a degree. We've got a young lad from Portugal called Chiquinho in January, who's kind of been that option in terms of someone who is very much a direct winger. He's very fast, very powerful, and has got a trick up his sleeve. And that seems to kind of be a little bit of a, not quite a stopgap, but it does give us that, not a lot of teams have known much about him. He's not at a point where he's able to start games because he doesn't have the game temperament to be able to do it. But to bring him on and sort of see, actually, we can test him with a bit of pace, because I like Trincao. He's quite a tricky winger, and he's found himself on the score sheet now a couple of times and is now providing that end product after 8 months in the league. But having someone like Adama, where you can see defenders physically get scared of him and not quite know what to do. But if I remember seeing something online before where it's like Adama Traore is running at you, what do you do? The comment is just let him run past you and the ball go out for a goal kick.
Lay on the floor in a ball. That's what I would do. Depends what he's running at me with. If he's running at me with a football, or if he's just running at me to run at me.
Jump out the way.
Just jump out the way. Just get clear.
Yeah,
but
so
Adama
it's so
Traore,
tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, Adama Traore, he's very much in the past for Wolves. Let's just concentrate on the future. And the last question would be this Friday, 8 o'clock, Friday Night Lights. What's your score prediction, Richard?
I need to be consistent, don't I? Because we're doing my show in a bit, so I need to. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Wow. That's an interesting one, considering 5 of the last 6 games were 1-1.
I thought, let's keep it consistent. But no, I think Newcastle have still got a bit about them. They've definitely got something to prove from the weekend. Mm-hmm. We're missing Neves. And we're missing Jimenez as well. Don't get me wrong, did great against Villa. Can we do it 2 games on the trot? Not 100%. So I think 1-1's probably a fair gauge at the moment for me.
I won't even elaborate on that because I will take your hand off right now for a 1-1. I just hope it's not a 1-0 up in a last-minute equaliser. But here's Matty being pessimistic again. But I will take a 1-1. I will take you that. If we don't finish 1-1 on the weekend, or if we lose, I will be blaming you. But yes, thank you very much, Richard, for coming on. I really appreciate it. You will see me on Richard's podcast, which is
Wolves Fancast.
Wolves Fancast. But for everyone who's watched, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please like the video. Please share the video wherever you're finding this video and comment below. Tell me what you think and tell me what your predictions are going to be this Friday. And as always, if you haven't already, what are you doing? Please subscribe to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel.